Hi, Dan.
Hello.
First of all, I'm so grateful that we were able to meet today because, especially after looking at that link that you sent me, the one that is private, I was just so taken by the information, the chronological order. You explained everything that happened and your background and the fact that you have been a whistleblower for like decades and you know all the people like for example Tom Bearden. I was like, holy shit. Like I was just, the more and more I was looking at it, I was like, I'm so happy that I get to experience you, because I do have questions, but I wasn't very sure if I can ask those questions because that video was private.
Oh, please ask away.
I think that like it's almost like where to begin, but the whole NASA thing, right? Because partly, I mean, I do work for NASA and I'm very aware of, what NASA does and what NASA doesn't do. And to some extent, everybody is selling a perception, especially the big organization, right? Because they all have created this facade of being what they are versus what they really are. And I think that maybe this is where we would have to cut it. But I'm just saying it's kind of an interesting thing for me because I am very eager to dive into the real technologies, like to do what we should really do and not be distracted by gravity.
It's yeah, it's quite interesting. It's like one oh my God after another. Once you research history and all this, um, it's yeah, I love your book, by the way. It's absolutely a lot of good points, and we collaborate on so many different things, including the uh, the structure of the matrix that we're in, and consciousness, and how we are forming our reality.
Exactly. And the thing is that everything that you are doing, through crystal, because we are a crystalline structure ourselves. Like I teach the light body activation class where basically I want to teach humanity everything that we can teach the crystal, because we are a crystal, right? So it's almost like in order to reprogram ourselves, we have to remind ourselves or get ourselves in touch with who we really are. So that way we can move and ascend.
Yes, we are all fractals of one source that we all come
Exactly.
from. And the nature is holographic, and therefore, when we change ourself, we change the entire hologram.
Exactly. And the very fact that we have so much selection, because when you're a hologram, you have so many selections in the kaleidoscope to choose from. And the very fact that we all have been dialing like only few channels all the time, and then we're completely messing up our cells because we're only dialing channels that are not helping us grow and be the highest potential, or provide the voltage that we need so we can actually be the highest potential being, right? That's where the struggle is.
Yeah, yes, there's a lot of encouraging things when you get into as you know, I I think I shared with you I had an experience back in 1977 with a being that my friend Elena Danan identified as an emether, and he projected a sphere in space. And within the sphere, I saw, like a star tetrahedron, and then another geometry within that, and it went into all these nested platonic solids. And at the time, I didn't even know what platonic solids were. I didn't have any comprehension that each geometry, the nodes of each one, connect to the next, into the next, and go into infinity. And what the being was conveying was that our vibrational frequency at a particular geometry frequency, through love, we move from one density up into the next higher density. And all this was new and fascinating to me back then, and got me into trying to seek out the understanding about what this was all about, because it left a profound profound impact on me. And so I sought out, this is in the early 1980s, Dr. Marcel Vogel was working with cut quartz crystals. And so I worked with him for several years, and it seemed to hold a key to understanding the matrix of reality, the structure of the quartz. And in 2022, when I connected with my friend Elena Danan, we did a show, and she knew I had a background researching quartz crystals. And her contact, Thor Hanaredion, he's a commander in the Galactic Federation of Worlds. They're a large organization that's in our solar system. His younger brother was going to a university in the Pleiades, learning how to terraform planets, or what they call star makers. And he knows a bit about crystals, and so you can imagine their science is thousands of years ahead of ours, and that I could ask him questions. And so, I asked him lots and lots of questions. So we have like about 150 pages of question answer. And what he revealed was very similar to what you've written in your book.
Wow.
That the secret of the universe is this tetrahedral fractal geometry, and that the structure of quartz is like the purest element in the universe, and that it acts as an interdimensional bridge. In other words, it's physical on all densities, and therefore it acts as a bridge between these densities. And so, and water as well acts as an interdimensional bridge, and that the energies of mind, just as Marcel believed, and so much got substantiated, what Marcel used to believe in when he set up a laboratory to study this, is that our energies of mind are geometrical. They're geometrical patterns that affect the effector morphogenic grid of reality, which is this tetrahedral matrix. And that he's given technologies that can change the matrix of reality. And I asked a question that was actually on a list of questions that they're not supposed to answer, that is in the prime directive. People think,
Yeah.
the prime directive, that's like Star Trek, right?
Right.
Well, it turns out that the Galactic Federation of Worlds, working with the Office of Naval Intelligence, actually gave the script to Gene Roddenberry to
That's
seed
true.
into our collective mind these concepts of prime directives, teleportation, warp drive, and all these ideas. And so he had to get special permission to answer the question. And what it was is that within within a crystal,
Oh, I love that. That's so
uh
beautiful.
you can I have some slides I can share with you.
Oh, definitely share with it. But I think you were finishing up a thought though. What were you saying? That the whole, yeah, okay. So for me, the whole thing is that I would love actually if I can talk to them somehow, because I feel like that they are already connected with you, because you already established a connection with them. And so it would be great if I can even ask them questions. But what I wanted to also say is that the whole thing about the quartz crystal, right? The fact that it actually can hold the information, and the fact that it is multidimensional, which means, like, when you look at the tip of the iceberg, right? And that tip of the iceberg is just the physical dimension. Everything else that's hidden is all the other dimension that we don't see because they are not physical. But the quartz crystal, like you said, it's a bridge, which means that it can actually exist in all dimension, which is why when you watch a movie like Superman, right? And then he goes into this place where he talks to his mom and dad, and they show up through the hologram, right? But it's the crystal city.
Yes, the the yeah the crystals, if you understand how to work with the geometries of the crystal, like with the crystal, the way interesting what Marcel received in a vision and a dream, which was like of the tree of life, like in the Kabbalah, where you have the either the Ein Sof and you have the manifest.
Exactly.
And then you have these 2 points. Well, one point was close to a 60-degree angle, and the other one was like the Great Pyramid, a 52-degree angle, or
Right.
51.843, and to be exact, according to Shehnaz. What happens is 2 vortices form, and these 2 vortices are like 2 mirrors that come together, and they're counter-rotating, going in opposite directions. And when they come together, they open up a singularity vortex into the void that allows, through consciousness, to affect the structure of reality. And I'm I'm doing an experiment with Sasha Stone. We just did a on the history of psychological operations, and he had about 40,000 people, logged in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm thinking, I can do this myself, and I do it ever so often when I have a clarity within I imprint into the holographic matrix to help accelerate. We're on a positive timeline now, but it's good to envision that and seed that into the collective mind to accelerate the manifestation of it into our planetary matrix that we're in. And so I'm kind of doing an experiment incorporating 40,000 people, even they could even use a glass of water, because the water acts as an interdimensional bridge. But when you use this technology that they're talking about, it allows you to connect to any point in time and space, any dimension, any density, and allows you to imprint at the highest level, because at the higher dimensional levels form the lower, not the other way around.
Exactly. That makes
And
sense.
it's like what you were saying. One thing that Shehnaz says, that dissonance cannot attune to an ordered state of geometrical resonance, and that is like Dr. Emoto's, where the crystals won't form in water when there's like a dissonant thought of hate, fear, all that, where they form when there's love, gratitude, compassion, that sort of thing, showing that the matrix at the highest level of source is connected with love. And when you intend love with the crystal, it enables its transcending capacity. In other words, it allows it to transcend the densities without dissonance, because it's like a secure channel when you have love with that. Like, say you have love for the planet, love for fellow human beings and stuff. You embed that with your intention, and it makes it much more effective.
Right, because love can transcend space, time, and dimension.
Yes.
Which is why love becomes the most powerful frequency, right? Even though, like, when you look at what David Hawken, right, in his scale, he shows peace as the higher level of calibration, even higher than the love. And I think the reason, to me personally, is because, peace requires like everybody to be in peaceful state. Just like when you're saying you're going to do it that with 40,000 people, it's almost like if everybody would be in a state of love, then that can become a peace. So maybe that's why it's at a higher, it's at a higher frequency, right? So yeah, I think that, I mean, my God, I have so many questions about so many things, because
Oh, good.
I have been like, okay, so this
I
book,
love questions.
yeah, and that's why, and I've seen, of course, I've seen your links, and I love everything that is there. I love the holographic camera. I mean, that just is really
Oh,
like,
isn't that fascinating?
oh my
You know,
God,
because it substantiates the reality of the holographic nature that it's able to tune through time. You know, thousands of photos were taken with it. So, and it was patent, so it definitely worked. And it's interesting that Jen Han revealed to me they have very advanced equipment. He revealed that in a past life that I was a scientist in Atlantis, and my specialty, you know, I worked on the crystal generators that they had back then, but my specialty was holographic medical science. And when you look at the you know, the so-called med beds, uh, Jen Hannon said, you know, the universe tends toward perfection, which is a very powerful statement, because what happens when you overlay a more perfect pattern over one that's distorted, it will morph into the more perfect pattern because the universe tends toward perfection. And this is how the medbeds are able to go back through time to a point where the body was healthy and whole, like say you lost an arm or something, go back to the time when the arm was whole, and it would overlay that pattern and it would remanifest, because our whole body is nothing but vibratory oscillations.
exactly. That's why we have a phantom arm situation, right? When people lose it, they still actually kind of, they tap into that morphogenetic field, they still feel the pain, even though there's no arm. And that's phantom pain, right? So it's interesting that that proves it, that there is more to the story than the physical. Because when you don't even have an arm and you still feel the pain, that means that you're tapping into that field where you used to tap into that channel that you were dialing in. But I wanted to ask you that when you are basically superimposing the profile that was at the optimum voltage, optimum health, right? That information, when you, where does that information come from? Like, was it stored in a crystal, or was it stored, where was it stored for you to superimpose it to kind of,
In your DNA.
okay, so you're saying that it's in your DNA. So your DNA already carries the information about your highest potential, and you are calling it in.
Yeah, well, what it does, according to my friend Alex Collier, who was an Andromedan
Yeah,
contactee,
I like listening to him too. Yes.
the Andromedans told him how it worked. And interestingly, they call it a camera, that it takes a holographic picture of you that records all the way back to the moment of your conception. Okay, so you have it from present time and all the way back, and slides of time. And what, you know, what I worked on was primitive, but it substantiated the principles that you can tune um, through the holographic field in time. And what they do is they pull out slides of time when, say, your mind was optimal, your heart was optimal, your skin, all your different, I mean, amazing technology. Now they take that where everything was optimal in this lifetime, okay, and they combine that and overlay it onto, and this is how the secret space programs, you know, they talk about the 20 and back, you know, where they're able to recruit somebody for 20 years in space, and then they age regress them back to their point of enlistment, say when they're 17 or 18 years old, and time regress them back to the point. I mean, amazing technology.
Right, right. So basically, they're wiping off all the evidence of what they've done, right, in a way, by using this technology.
Yeah, and then they wipe their memories.
Right. So basically, you're back to square one. But the very fact that they still, I think you mentioned that they still remembered it, right? That's the only reason they
Right, right. It
need.
doesn't all, it's not perfect. You know, you have
And I'm
people
so glad
like
it's I'm so glad it's
uh
not perfect.
yeah, I have a lot of friends that are been involved in the secret space program that you know, have memory recall of what happened
Mm.
when they were in space. But the idea is that they're utilizing this technology. I don't think they're, it's going to be, we're reaching a point, we're moving forward on a positive timeline that all the deceptions are going to be exposed, and that these technologies that had to be done in secret can now be more publicly, where you don't have to wipe people's memories anymore. But the fact that they're incorporating them, and I would love to see, my great-grandfather was the president of the Homeopathic Medical Society in the early 1900s, going up against Rockefeller, who was taking over complete control of our pharmaceutical medical system. And the system is so based on profiteering rather than people's health. If they can release these technologies, it would alleviate so much suffering and pain that is happening on our planet, and could extend our lives considerably. And there's no problem with overpopulation. The galaxy is large.
No, these are right. I completely agree with you. I mean, those are all the narratives, right, that has been sold so that people can think that everything is limited, because it's a classical physics mindset. It's a mindset
exactly.
What you see is what is there. It's the mindset where things are limited, like money is limited, everything is limited. And when you go into quantum mindset, it's a whole different way of thinking, because there is no limitation, because what you see truly is actually the output of what you don't see. So when you talk about Kabbalahs, right? So, and I have been a Kabbalah teacher myself, because I love and I combine that with quantum physics, right? Because it's basically dark matter giving birth to matter, ultimately, right? Physical matter, the visible matter, right? So that transformation that occurs, right, from dark to light, from our perspective, is very well explained by Kabbalah, and that connects with what consciousness is, what God is, where we come from, where we're going, and the entire exchange of energy, right? Because it's pretty much the transformation of energy that makes you see things a certain way. And I always, it's interesting because they say those who can manipulate light can pretty much control the world. And that's what's happening, because when you can manipulate light, you can control what people sees and what people doesn't see. And that's what's happening right now, is that there's a lot of perception being sold. And that's why people are living an illusory life, because they're not seeing the resonance, right? The one that makes them one with everything.
Yeah, they hijacked they infiltrated into our information systems, going all the way back. One of my specialties, I used to be an ABC newsman.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I was a broadcast engineer. And, when you look at how the information's been controlled, going all the way back, Operation Mockingbird and so forth, and they've consolidated it down to 6 corporations, and all of them have the same talking points. And it forms that it's too hard of a stretch for people to imagine that such a control structure has been put in place, and so therefore it's effective, because when you're born, your parents watch television, they don't question anything, and then as you go into adulthood, you just naturally assume that, hey, there's thousands of media journalists, that people will be raising their hands and saying, this isn't true, this is a deception, but no, they get fired right away. But then you have Hollywood. When you use imagery with sound, and you create these realities, and which have a lot of apocalyptic and fear and so forth like that. When you have millions of minds watching these kind of things, it goes into our subconscious mind, and all of us co-creatively create the reality that we're in. We don't, it's interesting, back in 1957, Heinz Eisnick of the University of London, he said there was this massive conspiracy that they took out the powers of human consciousness to affect reality in hundreds of universities across the planet, and this was part of, the secret societies and the Nazis,
Right, right. And then if you think about it, that's why religion works. Because that's why religion really works, right? Because everybody's tapping into that unified field theory of whatever their belief system is, right? So it becomes very powerful because it becomes an entity of its own. So to me, they have been very aware of this and it's been used, right? But now I feel like that we can use the same information to change the narrative, right? Because I actually stumbled onto this declassified CIA paper, Dan, and if you are interested, I can send it to you. But it did a very good job in explaining, they were kind of looking at the gateway experience, Robert Monroe Institute gateway experience. They were looking at that and they were basically saying that how we, based on the way, we imagine and visualize is how we actually affect our reality, right? So they basically prove it scientifically, and that they had that knowledge in 1983. And the paper got declassified in 2017. And I stumbled on it in 2020. So it took, you know what I mean? Like, and as soon as I stumbled on it, I was like, wow, look at this. I mean, it says everything, right? But to some extent, just like you said, our DNA has information, right? Like, just like in your case, you saw the platonic solid, and even though you didn't know what it was, but you felt resonance with it. Like for me, I have been studying and researching all these things, and then ultimately I meet people like you, and I feel like, thank you for validating me, right? Because I feel like you kind of validate me, because when I was reading everything that you send me, I was like, wow, like I kind of, got the same memo as you did.
Validated what you already knew.
Exactly. And that to me is really amazing. But that's how everybody, that's why we all, have that, right? That we can, when you feel good in your heart, then you need to follow that. And I think that when people are going to start doing that, then we're going to have that incredible camaraderie, right, across the board. And I'm looking forward for the next years to unfold, because I do believe that it's going to be more Star Trekky.
Oh yeah, we'll have a Star Trek future. It'll be, it'll be, as Jenhan has said, much enjoyment yet to come.
Yeah.
The uh, the thing, we have an edge, because truth has this ability to resonate within people, whereas a lie eventually gets exposed, but a truth has an ability to perpetuate because it keeps being validated.
That is very true. That is very true. And it's interesting what you said earlier about the accountability and integrity, because Walter Russell, so I've studied Walter Russell because I like him, and he explains that how, like, generally everything in the world kind of wants to go towards, like, like when there's a vice and then there's a virtue, right? Everything tends to go to like the coherence. Everything wants to be in a beautiful sacred geometry of flower of life, right? Like, because that's the ultimate goal. And the fact is that we sometimes come in our own way because we have been distracted, heavily distracted.
Oh, totally. Yeah, the last thing they want is to become aware of the creative power that we each have within us to affect the reality. They have to keep us distracted and keep us in fear. Fear keeps us disempowered, operating in survival mode. Whereas because the universe tends to perfection, as Jen Hanna said, when you use love, there's this ability to resonate with everyone. And what the dark elements that have an agenda, okay,
Right.
all their narratives are toward that agenda, whatever it is, climate change or whatever, there's an agenda, or like overpopulation for another one, because if we have my God, we in the United States, we've had anti-gravity craft developed all the way back in 1954, which was 20 years after Nazi Germany developed it in 1934. You know,
Mm.
when NASA was created, it was 1957, I believe, 56, something like
Yeah,
that.
I think so.
Run by a former Nazi SS officer.
Right. I know that's what I always say, that we won the war, American won the war in but on the other hand, Germans are running the show. So,
Yeah.
right?
One of my fellow witness, you know, I went to Washington to testify as one of the top secret military witnesses back in 2001 at the
Yeah.
National Press Club. We had, you know, 22 cameras in the back row. It was the largest event in the history of the National Press Club, but it only got like a minute clip on CNN and the other networks. And one of my witness friends, Donna Hare, she worked at NASA,
Mm.
and she said, I don't know how they do it. She's worked there for like 20 years, but there's some people that know what's like. She was shown into secret compartments where they have UFOs on the photos and they airbrush them out, you know, take them out of the photo before they release them to the public. Each one of us, by the way, uh, her including, each stated in front of the 22 cameras that were each willing to testify under oath before the congressional hearing we were seeking. And she revealed that NASA's airbrushing out the UFOs and that the astronauts, when they went to the moon in 1969, were all sworn to secrecy when they went there and they saw, you know, extraterrestrial craft and so forth. Um, and so she said, I don't know how they do it. You know, some people have no idea what's going on, and the other people in these secret compartments know the other side, like you were saying about NASA. There's another part of NASA that is aware of the other operations that are kept secret from the public. So, you know, the whole use of rockets, you know, I mean, is when you understand that they figured out the torsion physics in order to overcome gravity, you can see that, you know, the use of rockets has been somewhat of a uh they wanted to keep us in a technological state that would not achieve. That's why we still, you know, use gasoline, dangerous nuclear power plants. We use coal. I spent 10 years. I volunteered after the National Press Club. We set up a corporation. I had a database about 300 inventors and scientists. I spent 10 years going around the planet, meeting with scientists and inventors, vetting these so-called over unity type energy devices.
Oh, wow.
And it was just one horror story nightmare after another. Some were murdered. Most of them received what's called, ever since the Invention Secrecy Act in 1951, anybody that has anti-gravity, free energy, or a whole list of different things that are on an alert list, that if you, as an inventor, come up with something that matches this list, you automatically get issued what's called a national security order, which states that your invention has been deemed to be a detriment to the national security of the United States. Therefore, you cannot share it with anybody. And so they have over 6,000 incredible inventions across the board: medical, transportation, energy, you know, you name it, that have been suppressed from our civilization that could help us evolve further. But these, because of the, you know, pharmaceutical interests, because of the energy empire interests, they don't want to, but it's more than just profit. It's more than that. It's more about keeping a geopolitical control on the entire planet, keeping it at a certain state, while they have secretly in the background. You know, the Nazis developed their own secret space program back in the 1930s, and they went to the moon and they set up colonies on Mars and elsewhere in the solar system.
You
Um,
know, that's interesting. I don't know if so somebody told me that I don't have an Apple TV, but somebody told me that there's a show called For All Mankind or something, where they actually share the exact reality you're talking about. Like, I think that it was not, I need to correct myself, but basically it wasn't the American who basically first landed on the moon, it was, I think, either Russian or German. So I need to correct that part of the story. But it's interesting what you're saying is that the reality, right, like is different than what is
Oh,
being.
it's like the movie The Truman Show. We live in this
Yes,
fabricated reality that we think we're born into it, and we just think this is normal. This is the normal.
that's true.
But it's not the normal.
It's actually.
There's this veil. There's this that's using secrecy and deception that keep this to reality. That's why the U.S. Navy, I don't know if you caught the show with Sasha Stone. I went over a little quick history, but essentially, the prime directive states that advanced civilizations are not allowed to interfere with still evolving civilizations that have not reached interstellar travel and communicated with other civilizations.
Right.
We're considered to be a stage 2. Advanced civilizations that have interstellar are stage 3. So the reptilian race of the Sakar Empire, called the Draco, they entered into an alliance with Nazi Germany back in the early 1930s. This violated the Prime Directive and gave them advanced technology, and this is how they were able to defeat Admiral Byrd when he went down to attack the Nazi base in 1947. So what happened was this allowed the Galactic Federation of Worlds to intervene because it's their moral responsibility if another advanced race comes in and interferes with a lesser advanced race, it's their moral obligation to make it right. And so they've been working with the U.S. Navy secretly behind the scenes since the 1940s. And by the 1980s, they launched what's called the Solar Warden program, which, if you remember back in 2002, the National Press Club event that I participated in 2001 inspired a hacker in the UK, Gary McKinnon, who hacked into the computer systems and revealed the U.S. Navy Solar Warden program, this big cigar-shaped craft and everything. They wanted to put him away for 70 years in prison for doing that. And so this this other reality that we have hidden only is able to stay hidden through secrecy and deception to the people of our planet.
So, that's interesting because I think majority of the people fall in a category, even at NASA, like I run into people who are like me, who are very, like who wants to do the right thing for humanity, who wants, like people that I run into, they're all amazingly good people, right? So we always have that in every aspect of our, even in our community, right? So ultimately, everybody wants love, everybody wants peace, everybody wants to have a good life where they don't have to struggle all the time, right? So we all want the same thing. So it's kind of important that the more and more people come together, like you and I are talking, right? We come together and we keep multiplying. And that's my goal right now, is that we need to just focus on whatever happened. Now we focus on how are we going to all come together, right? But I wanted to ask you, like earlier when you were mentioning the tachyonic or torsion physics, would you mind giving a little definition from your perspective? What is that?
What is it?
When you were mentioning torsion physics, if you can explain what torsion physics is, because there are so many terminologies, the word torsion, the tachyonic, 0-point energy, scalar. There are so many different words for a lot of.
Oh, torsion physics.
Yes.
Torsion physics. Well,
yes.
I'm not a physicist, but what happens when I have a layman's understanding of it, but
and that's perfect.
The mercury plasma, which has a lot of iron oxide, it's kind of like a red mercury. They have these spinning interestingly, they have a spinning counter rotational. And what happens is it cancels the mass. And when you cancel the mass, it gives you the anti-gravitic effect, which is interesting because in understanding the technology that Jenhan Redion has shared with me of the technology on their planet, how they power their entire planet, as well as how they power their starships, is they use this torsion physics, and he has given me, along with my science team, the instructions to create what is called a Frill generator crystal. And what it is it's a quartz crystal that's cut in laterally and vertically with the hexagonal core of the lattice crystal structure with the 60 and the 52-degree angle, and then has two coils, one of copper and one of silver. The silver's for the etheric field and the copper's for the electromagnetic field. And they're at 90 degrees to each other. And what we do is we pulse them at 180 degrees out of phase at a frequency of 4096 hertz. This frequency is the resonant frequency of quartz. This is very powerful information. And so what happens is it creates this torsion field within the crystal where the two vortices are coming together. It conjugates with the crystal's field and opens up a singularity wormhole that from that, what he describes as Frill. Frill is like this life force of the universe, and this emanates from it. And it's we're not allowed now that on their planet they have these huge pyramids and even have little small ones, replicas, that they use in a remote countryside. But in the big cities they have it, and the frill goes up is converted and transpond it to they don't use wires like we do. Everything is wireless, and it transponds to all their different devices, and they get energy from that. Now, we're not allowed to use it for energy generation because the control structure is still quite active on this planet.
Right, but it's a mindset, Dan, because if you really think about it, it's a mindset. They don't use wires because they already know that there's a quantum field, right, all around us. So they're tapping into the 0-point energy rather than ignoring it. Like everybody's like, we're calling it vacuum, right? Like there's nothing between you and me. No, there's like the fact that you and I are communicating, we are actually like we're communicating, but we're connected, we're interconnected. So we are having quantum entanglement right now as we're communicating with each other, right? Because there is a quantum field between us. So it's kind of interesting because they are tapping into all the things that truly makes us more empowered in so many ways, which is the reason it's time to have that. So I'm actually excited to hear. So you are actually working on, like you are basically getting an instruction from them and you're working on something that's going to create like a power generation system through crystals.
The frill, what it does is it goes into your body. It doesn't change the molecular structure of your body, but it changes the oscillations in the molecular structure that removes dissonance in the patterns, and therefore it's healing and it extends youth. It's like it's regenerating. And so they've given this as a gift to us, and we're giving it to the world, freely, and we're working on optimizing it so it has more efficient generation of the frill.
Right.
But we're calling across, if you go to marcelvogel.org, there is a link there with the instructions on how to create the frill generator crystal, but it's at the first version. I would suggest waiting till we're waiting for you to get some new information. Jenhan's currently on Mars right now. He's doing terraforming operations. And speaking of quantum, this is not channeled information or anything like that. Elena Denan, when she was 9 years old, she was abducted by the Greys for their hybrid program. She was rescued, and they repurposed the implant to be a quantum communication device. It's a military communication device. It's actually implanted in her head. And this quantum communication device, unlike, electromagnetics, how we use them by the, the radiation reduces to the square of the distance, the quantum, you can be on another galaxy, and
Exactly.
you can communicate. And so, of course, their technology is far in advance of ours. And so that's how I communicate with Jenhan Redion, is that I'll write up these questions. Elena can scan it with her eyes. They record it. Jenhan responds to it, and then she sends me back the answers to them. And that's so she acts as a relay for me in our communication. So it's not channeled information or anything like that.
Right, there's a communication. So you said that Elena has a implant, right? Was she
Yes.
wanting to remove the implant, or can she remove it if she wants?
It's actually operating in another density,
Okay.
the implant, but it has shown up on there was some kind of Carillion photography thing. You could see a little indication of it, but it's not something that you can
Physically take
normally
it out.
normally
You know,
see.
it's interesting because in 2018, I had a kind of a spiritual reading done by a sound healer, and that person told me that I have an implant, right? And a month after, I go for my dental cleaning, and it just leads me to some of the CT scan and so forth, and they find a foreign object right here under my nose. And it looked like a nose ring, like a metallic nose ring. So they told me that there's a foreign object in your body, and we have to immediately surgically remove it because we truly don't know what it is. So I ended up having a nose surgery done. Can you believe the cascading effect, right? That this guy tells me that I have a foreign object, and then my dental result ends up saying that I have a foreign object. They perform a surgery and they take it out. And then when I asked the surgeon to show it to me, she gave me a little tiny sample. She said, I can't give you the whole thing, but I'll give you a tiny sample. And then she kind of used the word fungus or something. And when
What
I,
was the word?
she just used, there was a name of the fungus that she used. Like she said, it's some sort of fungus that was stored in your nose. And then I mentioned it to some of the other people, and they all said that it was an implant, but like they removed it. But it's kind of like, nobody wants to openly say things because it uncovers too much stuff. But it was interesting because, it got removed in 2018 for me. And I almost feel like that I jump started, like I became more aligned with what my calling is. Like I
Yeah,
almost jump
who
started.
knows what the origin is of that? I knew Dr. Roger Lear, who he was a surgeon who would remove implants from different people, and
Oh,
he would
really?
analyze them, and he found that one thing that was interesting about the implant was that the body would normally, a foreign substance would create inflammation, around
That's
it,
true.
it would just integrate right into the body, and it would emanate, certain frequencies that would be emanating from them. But the the Greys were doing implants, and who knows, what what the source of that was. But you had a good reaction. No doubt your DNA attracted some attention.
I know. I was like, I mean, it was kind of interesting experience, right? And at the end of the day, we all have had dreams. We all have had dreams where grays are working on you, right? I mean, I've had very vivid dreams where I have been like being worked on by the grays. And actually there were times like, because, I kind of realized, right? Because like that this is a dream, but then I'm like, I feel it, like I need to get away from here. And then what I do is, because I kind of am very active in my dream, I actually create like a situation where if I'm being worked on and then they're about to do something to me that's going to hurt, what I do is I create a wheel on the place that I was on, right? Like, so basically I kind of just use something, like basically I became powerful in my dream, and I kind of said that I'm going to slide myself in a way that I'm no longer going to be with them. You see my point? Like, so I'm basically creating these opportunities to exit the scene in the dream. And I have very vivid dreams where they are working on me. So and I know that the dream is just you visiting other dimension. It's not that far from reality. It's just another reality.
Yeah, we can transform anything. It's
Right?
true.
Right. So I think that from that standpoint, I mean, yeah, who knows that what has happened to us, but the very fact that we are, we're talking about all this is because it needs to come to the surface so people can realize that, yeah, we have not been alone. There has been a lot of interruption. Yeah.
Just our talking about these things, is affecting the morphogenic field of the universe. Because our minds, what we're thinking about these things is broadcasting.
Oh,
we're
100%.
broadcasting, just having these thoughts and discussion is feeding the collective mind that we're all connected to.
That is very, very true. So I would like to ask you, because I know we have been talking for a while, is that to wrap
Oh,
it?
I love it. I feel people don't ask enough questions. There's so much that needs to be revealed.
That is true. But basically, and I'm also very intrigued. I know we didn't even touch on that, and maybe we'll talk some other time. But I was very intrigued that you live off the grid, because that's like kind of like I find it very exciting to live off the grid. You lived off the grid for many years, right?
Oh yeah, since 1999. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I love being independent and
So you still
you
live
know,
off the grid right now?
totally off the grid. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I live on top of this remote mountain in the forest, and yeah, it's a lifestyle that I don't know. It's like it's sort of satisfying when you feel like you can be completely independent and not have to worry about any kind of infrastructure changes that happen around you.
That's
You
true. That's
can.
true. You're not affected by it like everybody else is. So do you live in America or you live in,
I live in Southern Oregon,
oh, really? So you are in America.
Near the
Okay.
Applegate Valley area.
Oh, wow. Okay. So people can visit you if they want to, right? Like you're not, like you're, it's a place where people can travel and visit, right? If they want to, if you invite them, of course, or no.
What was the question again? I'm not sure.
Like one can come and visit you. Is it like not that challenging to get there, right?
Oh
If
no, it's not that challenging to get
Okay,
here.
good. Because I was just thinking,
No,
oh,
I don't live it's far enough away, but not inconveniently.
okay. That's very good, because I mean maybe I should take a field trip, because I'm very interested in what you are doing in terms of like the science experiment with crystal, because crystal to me is where the answer to our ascension is in every which way, because we are crystal ourselves and we have been using crystal for technology, but we need to use crystal the right way to really heal ourselves and also, generate power like you're doing, right? So crystal can become a one-stop shop.
Yeah, and if you're interested in understanding how to use the crystals, I did a site in honor of my friend who Dr. Marcel Vogel, to carry on his work and expand upon it. marcelvogel.org. On there, they will have a series of crystal classes that Elena and I are doing that's
Okay.
based on both Marcel Vogel's laboratory work and Jenhan's information. And the first class was on selecting a crystal, what type of crystal, And then the second class was on the importance of completely clearing the crystal. The crystal has to be cleared of all, it stores information. It's so elaborate that it can actually imprint consciousness. And so our next class, which has been postponed for some time, is going to be on some of the use of the crystals, for different applications. And so, yeah, there's a series of classes that we're doing on that. And I have zero financial interest in any of this. I just want to bring this information out, and especially this technology from their world to help benefit our planet and um, help alleviate suffering. Because if the Frill energy can go in and help heal people, that would be a good thing.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that it's interesting, right? Because they're using the word frill, which is very similar to the bliss, the resonance. You know, there are all these words, everybody uses the word that they make sense out of, but ultimately it's all the same, right? Because it's interesting that, like, when you see the word om, you know, like Hindu people use the word om, and they
Uh-huh.
have this dot on the very top. That actually is representation of frill that you're talking about, because it's a representation of oneness, it's a representation of resonance. It's a representation of you being in gamma synchrony or you being the flow. Basically, it's you being pretty much one with everything around you, which is when the magic happens, right? Because you are no longer resisting at all. Because basically, it's all exactly where it needs to be. That's
Yeah,
that,
the frill is all around us. We're surrounded by it. We if he's given Jen has given an exercise that they use that can regenerate you using a frill exercise that brings the frill into the heart chakra
Mhm.
and then feeds the toroidal flow, from the root up through the crown and back again, and using the breath. And the breath that, Marcel found that when you pulse the breath, like through the nostrils,
Yeah.
like that. He initially was working with man-plant communications, and he could communicate from a plant from San Jose in California all the way to Prague, Czechoslovakia, and cause the script chart recorder to respond, pulsing his breath with the intention. And he found that the pulse breath was far more effective. And then with Jenhan, he confirmed that when you pulse the breath, it has this ability to pierce into and penetrate matter into the holographic matrix. And so when you pulse your breath and visualize, which is very powerful, the frill coming into the heart chakra and feeding this energetic flow, and you do this for a couple of minutes, it will regenerate you. And on marcelvogel.org, that exercise, I put it up there to share with everyone.
Oh, wow, really? That's pretty amazing. So yeah, so that means that you are basically offering everything through that website, everything that you're learning, right? With 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 him, with Jan Han. So that is pretty amazing that there is all that out there. So yeah, I'm definitely going to look into it, and if I do end up publishing this, I'm going to put the link there. If you're okay with me, then I'll publish it. But we can actually stop the recordings. Is there anything last minute you just want to say before I stop it?
Oh, let's see. Just looking at notes here. Let's see. We covered some of the good points. No, just love the questions, love the topic.
And I know we just
It's so
scratched the
important.
surface, truly, because I mean, I do have a lot of questions, but I wanted to also listen to you, because everything you're saying is a music to my ear, because I just love that we are basically what you're saying. If I have to summarize all of that, is that you have a contact with Galactic Federation through Elena Danan, and you guys are not just contacting them, you're working together to start making invention using Vogel crystal to ultimately help humanity in a way that they can heal themselves, they can use as a power source, and there's just so much more to come, because you have just opened the communication, you have scientists who are working on it, and you guys are going to keep on expanding on it, because now when I see the future that we are going to be embarking on from 2024 to 2045, it's going to create a whole new way of living on Earth. Like, I feel like if I can see the video recording of 2045, it's going to be looking like a truly a sci-fi movie where we're like, what the
Oh
heck,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I already feel it. So, and I think you are in the midst of all that. And what I want to say is that I would love to be participating in any which way I can with you, collaboration, consulting, whatever, because we all need to work together, because there's just so much work to do. So no,
Would love to. Yes.
yeah, so I'm very excited that we had this introductory conversation, and there's more to come. And I appreciate you reading my book, because, as I said, that gives you an idea on how my understanding is. And because we are kind of coming from different part, we can complement each other in our own ways. I mean, that
Absolutely.
that's the ultimate goal. So thank you for that. And I'm going to stop the recording, but please stay Um,
Yeah, when we can